We buttoning up our shirts?
I don't know. Go ahead and take your shirt off if you want to.
All right.
So let's throw this out here for the regular everyday banker guy that's like, technology, whatever, right? Okay. The whole conversation for me, when people talk about legacy technology, I think that's a crazy conversation. There's technology, period. Whether I don't care what it is.
Period.
Everything's changing, everything's evolving, including the legacy guys. But here's what's happened. So you get your vendor, and here's your mobile, and here's your offering, and this is your digital front. Okay. Good luck changing it. As much as people want to scream at you about your digital transformation, you really can't do a hell of a lot about that unless you launch this thing called a direct bank, right? And if you do this direct bank, it's another mobile offering. Well, that doesn't necessarily mean you have to get rid of what you're doing. So what Corey and these guys did at Locality was say, let's take that principle of a direct bank and just launch that. That makes you absolutely the most pliable technology vendor banker on the earth.
You want to introduce yourself?
Absolutely. Yeah, sure, man. Obviously, I'm Corey LeBlanc. I'm the COO, CTO of Locality Bank. Probably not your traditional banker in a sense. I'm kind of more of a banker by association, right? Started this thing in enterprise technology with the Air Force back in 2001 when I enlisted, just really trying to go get college and make life work for me and my wife. As we started to transition out of that life, a bank just happened to be the job I took, and thought it was going to be this stepping stone into getting back into the civilian world. Found out really quickly there's some cool stuff that we can do with technology and banking to make a significant impact. And being an enlisted guy, we weren't doing that for the paycheck, right? And so I knew what it was to struggle financially, and I knew how much of an impact bank could have, right? Or at least good advisors could have in your life. So 15 years working for a regional community bank. I was Community Trust Bank when I started. Went to actually renamed it to Origin Bank in 2015 when IPO. Then in the beginning of 2020, right, the world changed, and by the end of that year, I was starting a bank of my own with a couple of founders down in South Florida with this idea that we wanted to fill the gap that, the, I guess, consistent loss of true community banks and local markets that we were seeing was creating. And so the gap specifically that we chose to target was in the local business commercial market, where we feel these are the drivers of the communities and the economies that we all live in. And so that's kind of where the idea of Locality Bank came. And then kind of what Locality has become has really been this iteration time and time again, from talking to customers and talking to the rest of the team that we've accumulated and some of our partners along the way.
Let me ask a question here for the rest of the planet that doesn't really get this. So digital first, digital only, directed for digital natives, right? Hey, I like to think
That's it, man.
native.
You're almost, we'll let you in the club,
if
man.
I get any older, I'll be a digital native.
There you go.
But yeah, it's a neat concept. And I really like the fact that you guys focused on business, because I think we all recognize, if people don't recognize, here's for everyone else, okay? If we blow this one to where we take the community bank market out of the food chain of the economic supply chain, it's going to be a mistake we can't recover from.
I think we learned that during PPP, right? I think a lot of average Americans learned that, how important community banks are, which is good to bring back to the forefront.
And so as we kind of begin to just settle down with a realization of, hey, back to reality, let's be cool here, not screw this thing up, allow community banking to have a place in our economic supply chain. And it fits the vital role, particularly on small business.
What's the percentage of small business loans that community banks do?
It changes, but it depends on which day you're looking at it, but let's go with 64. Okay. As you look at all of this information and you kind of come to that oh wow moment, here comes in the digital native guy that, I'm a neobank.
FinTech.
Yeah, I'm a neobank guy. I want to only deal with challenger banks. I don't want to deal with the brick and mortar and the bullshit. I want to go on okay. And then here comes Locality and fills this perfectly put together moment in time. Tell me what you saw, man.
Yeah. So one of the things that we saw really quickly, right, is we started talking to a lot of people right? So we talk to business owners, startups, people who've been in this space for a tremendous amount of time. We've talked to people and what is considered our local market, which is southeastern Florida, so Broward County, Miami-Dade, and Palm Beach counties. But really, we talk to people throughout the U.S., right? And we talk to other bankers, we talk to FinTech providers and people that we trust and know really, really well. The thing that came to the forefront of all of this is that, one, there is no primary banking relationship that exists anymore. Most people have, at least 4 to 5 different relationships. So depending on what it is that they're trying to do, they rely on the company or the entity that can best serve them, right? And so when we were determining on how to approach this, we knew that there had to be a physical, personal element to the thing that we're doing. That's why we're digital first, right? Not digital only. So the hires that we've done, it hasn't been bringing in a bunch of engineers or a bunch of software guys or stocking up on call center. We've relied on some of our tech partners to help us fill that need. We hired really good bankers that have been in this market and have a really good understanding on how to help people.
And that's a great question here. So this one comes up a lot every time we talk with people about, I got a fully automated solution. We're going to do business account opening, and then it's automatic and onboarding process, 100% automated. And no, generally you run into, okay, how are we going to check with the Secretary of State? How are we going to do this? How are we going to do that? And you run into these just weird situations.
Yep.
And each one of these things present a new technology challenge. And one of the things that I've kind of caught on from you guys, we actually hear about you behind your back. We say all the good things, nothing bad. But anyway, the cool part that I think you guys have done, and this is something I wish bankers would really catch on. Bankers, this part's for you. Hate your vendor, be pissed off at them, talk bad about them behind their back, and do all the nasty things, and then you don't change. And let's go ahead and renew that contract, and we'll hire a consultant maybe to go in here and negotiate this for us. How's that working out? Probably not a good plan. So tell me what you've done and that's different. When you don't treat these people like vendors, you treat them more like a partner.
Yeah, it's a huge thing, right? So that was one of the things that I said initially whenever I was coming on board. I was telling you that one thing I don't want to do is ever sign a vendor contract, right? I only sign partnership deals. And what that means to us is that there has to be this mutually beneficial objective, right, in common. That we both have. So, when we sat down and we started to look at core vendors or online and mobile banking vendors or some of these ancillary products, that we're going to offer inside of our applications, the first thing we sat down to discuss between the two parties was what is it that each of us wanted to achieve from this relationship that we were creating, right? And there couldn't be this discussion about cost or pricing or timelines or anything until we actually had that thing figured out. And so they had to get to know what it was that we were trying to do, right? What was the purpose of Locality? Why did we need to exist? And how did we want to see this thing moving forward? And then on my side, I needed to understand, well, what is wins for your company as well? Because if we're just solely focused on Locality, when, I say, the stuff hits the fan, or if we're having issues, nobody's really coming to the table to try to help us, right? If we're just, really one-sided on this thing. Whereas when we're all at the table equally, you get a lot better response. And we've seen that, time and time again. And so as we're kind of getting up to launch, everyone told us, there's zero way that you're going to go through this charter application process in under a year. There's zero way you're going to launch this bank for under $1 million. And there's no way you're going to go with a modern core provider and be able to get into market in the timeframes you're saying. We did every single one of those things. But we worked with our regulators, we created partners, right? We worked with Nimbus as a core provider, and we created partnerships. And some of these other vendors that we brought along the way, same thing. Everybody just, sucked it up, pushed as hard as we possibly could, and we got it out in the market. Now, there's obviously things that we definitely need to continue to improve upon and keep doing. But at the end of the day, we feel really, really good about where we are because we did focus on that, right? Creating relationships and partnerships and not just vendor contracts.
Cool. That's awesome. Something we struggled with a ton at Malachi, man. And same here and probably same with you looking at customers, right? He has a great line that is probably horribly inappropriate, but he makes the comment that sometimes you have customers that you want your competitors to have. And I think that fits, right? You find those awesome partners, right? either as
Yeah.
the the servicor or from the other side, as the customer. And it's really cool when those things click. It's just such a different thing. So I totally get it. So can you hand me this bad boy? Did you get one of these too, man?
He got one before we did.
So I did.
I saw.
So I did. So actually, so these skateboards are really cool, man. This is a local guy down in New Orleans that has been doing this for a long time. And me and my wife, Cassie, had one of his boards on our wall with Johnny Cash on it for years, right? And
Cool.
somebody took notice of that. Someone took notice of that board and was asking where we got it. And so it kind of trickled down. And then so when Cassie got over with the Nimbus team, Allison and that group, they started, creating some of these really cool, unique boards that are just amazing artwork, but also really personal. So yeah, I got my birthday present from my wife and Allison, who's the CMO over at Nimbus, was a Locality bank board deck,
So cool.
which was, I had a cool opportunity to get Tony Hawk to sign very recently. So that bad boy's going on the wall somewhere at our facility very soon.
Good.
I'll tell you what, I saw that thing and I was like,
Those are Christmas presents.
that is so cool. It's the
Yeah.
coolest thing ever. And it's like telling Allison, what a badass move, right?
She's a
Nimbus-
great marketer.
Nimbus just really
Yeah.
did that. And then out of nowhere, completely didn't even expect this at all. Santa Claus brings one for each of us.
That was great.
So it's FinTech Cowboys on it. And I'm like, well, isn't this cool? So this is a great story. Had some serious health problems here with Grandpa and over Christmas. Get this FinTech Cowboy thing. And this isn't the kind of stuff you go into with, the older folks in the family. They're like, what FinTech Cowboy? What is it? So they knew nothing of what we really do or who we are. And so it was a neat chance for Tanner to kind of explain to his grandpa what we do for a living.
They loved it, man.
Yeah.
It was the coolest thing ever.
Yeah.
Really cool.
No, so it's little personal touches, right? But the thing is you either work with people who get that or you don't, right?
That's
and
it.
I would much rather spend my days working with people who get that. And that's where, the Nimbus group and Allison and their marketing team has helped us tremendously. When we start trying to figure out how we communicate the brand, I know technology, right? I know how to build infrastructures and architectures to build networks that support growth. We got a lot of bankers who know banking, but that team over there has helped us understand how do we communicate and put a visual to that. So the marketing element of what Locality's become is very, very tied to how well Allison and that group are at what they do. But that team's amazing, man.
Yeah, Allison and Jeffrey talk about human middleware is what they call it. I love that concept, man. And
yeah, it's pretty.
It's that thing that you're talking about of how do we be digital first, but not only, right? And still put community in the community with the bankers. And I mean, you see it all the time. It's like the vendor community is very much a lot of times the vendor community. It doesn't really get that you're disintermediating the personal relationship with the community if you put the technology in between. So I love the idea of having the technology make the people go further.
And to the point we were talking about just a minute ago, that when you treat these folks like vendors without trying, like you said, I want to see what I need. What do you need? What makes it work for you? And, let's negotiate them down to the absolute last perfect penny we could ever get, penalize everything, squeeze everything we can out. And you're probably not going to be the most profitable, happy customer that they want to go serve.
If it's a strategic relationship, I want to pay extra, right? If this is important to me, I want to pay premium, whatever will make me important to you.
In your sweet spot. So we try to show data and show bankers a lot of times, if this is the spectrum of a vendor's client base, you really don't want to be over here and you really don't want to be over here. Right in the middle. That's where they're going to spend their dollars.
R&D.
That's where they're going to have their efforts put. And that's where you'll see the responses.
And back to it's peer grouping from the banking community, right? And we see a lot of that transaction.
Yeah, absolutely.
Side. It's cool.
I have to say about the businesses and what services you offer them that's unique.
Yeah, so some of the things that we're doing that's unique, right, is right now we're focused on building a true community bank that's going to be as end-to-end as possible, right, for the commercial market. And so we're talking about that depository relationship. We're talking about that lending relationship that needs to exist, right? Because I think we all know, right? It's pretty clear, especially during the PPP periods and everything. It's just highlighted even more so that there's this huge gap between the cash that a company has on hand that they need to run day to day, and the time that it takes them to get access to the capital to either keep their business afloat or start to grow. And how does the business understand when they are at the point in time where they should be growing, right? How do they know when they need to go get a loan? So, like I said, I apologize. I was about 2 minutes late for this call, but I was sitting there talking with a FinTech company on how we can improve the way that we help customers understand what a banker looks at when they look at the loan process. And so what Locality is going to offer, right, is a full suite of products and services, both from a commercial and a consumer depository relationship, mostly focused on commercial, right, obviously, but allowing those businesses and a subset of consumers to still be able to bank with us. And lending products, from CNI to CRE to SBA loans in a digital native platform that's going to continue to iterate and evolve based on the market and the unique challenges that they're facing today. And that way, the product and stuff they're looking at that they sign up for on day one versus the product that they see on day 365 could be significantly different depending on what it is that they're seeing as things that they need. And that was key, right? That was also why finding a digital native and a cloud native core provider was important, is because we needed to be able to have change that was easy and cost efficient for us to do. Some of the early things that we're putting into the system is really just this intake process from the loan and into core that is just sped up, right? So that we're automating as many of those things as we possibly can so we can get people access to capital faster. My goal, right, is to take the time that it takes us to fund a loan today and reduce it by 10 to 20% here in the first year, so that we can try to continue to improve on filling that 60 to 90 days it times to take to get a loan funded, whereas they have under 30 days of run rate, right, in cash sitting on hand. We want to be able to fix that a little bit. And then we also want to be able to start to create a trust with our customers, right, with the services and products we have, so that they start to share and aggregate more parts of their business or their financial data with us, so that we can help them be more predictive on the times that they need to start to take action, so that we can start to educate and advise them on how to use this data to better run their businesses.
Right.
Fantastic.
Weird question for you. It's been a lot of topic in the last 2 weeks. It's been coming for a while, but it seems like everybody's trying to talk about it. And it's the fintechs, not meaning the vendors, but more the challenger space, focused on business as opposed to retail. And I think if you look at that space, they've pretty well done what they can do, or a large part on the retail side of, the disruption. I'm not going to say it's over, but there isn't a hell of a lot further to go. But business, especially small business, is right. Pretty open playing field. There's some folks like Divvy, some others, obviously, right, Breck, some others that are really coming on that side. So from my perspective, I think you're coming at this at the right time, because you got a little bit of a hybrid, right? Technology first. What do you think about that? Do you think community banks should be as fearful as I do? I mean, at least that there's a threat that they're coming for small business, as much as we all rely on that. And is that something you're thinking about? No,
100% we do. That's why we built Locality, right? Is because this is something that I've been seeing since well before 2020, right? Is we saw this trend, right? That year over year, it probably didn't look substantial, but when you looked over a 3-5 year period, there was pieces of the business relationship that was leaving the bank and going to these other companies, whether it be a Stripe, whether it be a Square, whether it be, a Novo or a Brex. And again, year over year, maybe it doesn't concern the boardroom, but when you look at it over time and you see that continued increase, right, in differential that happens year over year, it should be very concerning to your traditional banks that don't have the flexibility in their technology stacks, or don't at least have the flexibility really in their business plan to be able to adjust and meet the needs of their customers. Because once you lose a part of the business, it's very hard to go get it back.
Amen.
And then on top of that, it really created a disservice, right, to the customers. Because again, like I said, most of the businesses that we talked to as a part of the due diligence phase or just market research came back down to, we were hearing stories where people were having to hire fractional CFOs pre-revenue as a startup just to be able to understand and manage their finances, because they didn't understand And these aren't people that are first-time business owners. These are people who run multiple businesses in their lifetime. So they know how to run businesses. This wasn't that they just had no clue, right? And they were stepped off into something they weren't familiar with. But they were hiring fractional CFOs just to be able to connect the dots so they understood how much money they were pulling in, pre-tax, post-tax, all this other stuff. And so you look at your traditional bank, right, in the way that they look at aggregation of data, or the way they look at the ability to then take that data and present it back to the customer in a way that's, helpful. And they don't really have control of that because they're relying on a lot of these vendors, right, and not partners to kind of dictate what that roadmap looks like and when they can provide a product or service to a customer, when they can start to make these changes, or what partners can connect into these core systems and some of these other pieces.
Well,
that's where banks.
Mhm.
That's where banks should be scared, right? Because it's not so much that these vendors or these fintechs or neobanks or challengers are taking business from them. It's the fact that the bank doesn't have control to go take it back that scares the hell out of me, to be honest with you.
Right.
Mhm.
In my opinion. Now, here's what I want to invite you into Bankers Helping Bankers. You always have an invitation to come speak at our conference at the Roundup. That's where bankers sit down and teach and coach each other up on things that are availability. Because I guarantee you, every banker out there needs to hear what you have to say about, I did what you guys say can't be done, and I did it in a cool way, and I can share my experiences with you. And these are things that you can employ in your bank as a direct bank, even if you don't do exactly what they did. But I guarantee you, I think we'd agree this is the bank of the future.
Well, and Corey, you're like a phoenix, man. You're Air Force to banking story. I mean, reinvent yourself, right? And this time it's sort of the same thing, but on purpose. And we see it all the time. You do too. It's the common denominator of success. I mean, it's people that go out there and say, look, you're looking in the mirror trying to rip it apart and saying, how do I reinvent everything? And I just think you've done a great job. We're huge fans, man.
Yep.
No, I appreciate that. It's funny that you mentioned that because, to be honest with you, that was kind of one of the driving forces on a lot of things that we've done is, look, we want Locality to be massively successful because we want Southeastern Florida to be massively successful, right? But we joke internally about scale. And obviously, we'd love to scale Locality to as big as that makes sense. But to be honest with you, a huge win for us is if we can create a blueprint for the community banks that exist out there to follow, to know exactly what's possible and what's not. Because I got so sick and tired of going to conferences and having conversations around digital transformation, which meant app refresh. And I was like, no one gives two shits about what your app looks like on the front end. They only care what it is that you can do for them. And you guys are not doing anything on the back end. And so we wanted to show the world really that you can kind of take some risks, you can kind of do some of these things, and maybe some of these things aren't ideal on day one because it's going to take more work and more risk. But at the end of the day, you're going to create something substantially greater than what you could have just by kicking that can down the road and hoping nobody notices. All you do is put a new front on your app and everything else will remain the same.
Yeah, that's it.
Inspiring message.
We're going to see how this works out. I guarantee you're going to be successful.
We're rooting for you.
And the way you go about everything from partnerships instead of vendors, serving your community, what a thought, right? An actual person. I mean, I talk to people that have great budgets and they kind of go, boy, we did so good. We're so proud of ourselves. I'm like, but did you serve anybody? Did you serve anybody? And you guys put that top of the list. I think that's so important.
Yeah, well, and that's why, we start to talk about costs and some of the day one product, right, is we were very cautious on what we said was going to be MVP one. And so we launched last Wednesday, but we're not really taking, customer deposit accounts or loan requests just naturally, like we're true MVP one. We're working with a subset of customers, investors, organizers to flush the systems out because what we didn't want to do is invest a tremendous amount of money on what we thought would be awesome. We wanted to build a system that could do what it's supposed to do, serve the people it's supposed to serve, and then look at what it is that was missing and continue to build that.
We get that, don't we?
Yeah. And open-minded about what to do in the future. This is what it's all about. Any final thoughts you want to tell any other bankers out there? A message? Hey, he's been open for 3 days here, so he's got some advice.
Yeah, my advice is quit worrying about just having a 5-star rating on your mobile apps and quit worrying about positive reviews and let people call your baby ugly sometimes, but make sure that on the back end as a company, you're building your business plan and your business around the ability to support change, both organizationally and both publicly from a product level, and take control, right? Again, we were talking about this a little bit ago. The thing that scares me the most, man, is most of these banks do not have control of their tech stack. Therefore, they don't have control of their business moving forward. That's a scary, scary thing.
We are too well informed and worried about it. Look, man, thank you so much for being. I mean, we have a new bank. This is so cool and moving the right way and supporting community banks, man, in the community and all the good people. And thanks for your service as well.
Well, I want to thank you for riding with the FinTech Cowboys. Sure. Also, I want to thank you for taking when you got to be the busiest guy on earth, time to take a moment and try to help these other bankers across the country see what you're doing, learn who Locality Bank is, so that they can start saying, I want to listen to this Corey guy. He's a pretty cool guy. And he's not too excitable. I like to see what he has to say. He seems measured in his approach to things. I think everybody's going to hear a lot more from you in the future. I sure appreciate you.